Members of the national men's basketball team have arrived back in Australia this morning following their spectacular brawl in the Philippines with players and staff from the home team. Former NBA star and Boomers assistant coach Luke Longley has slammed the behaviour of the Filipino team's coaching staff, accusing them of encouraging players to act violently.
The brawl took place during an Asian qualifying match in Bulacan for next year's Basketball World Cup. Longley says the Philippines head coach told his players to resort to thuggery.
I do believe that their coach, Chet Reyes, incited them to come out and thug us. I think there's evidence of that, video evidence of that. Then he substituted a thug out there who took 3 or 4 cheap swings at bubbles. This is out of the party line, but I'm most disturbed with their head coach. I think he was embarrassed by the way his team were playing. I think he was embarrassed by the kind of shape they were in. I think he was embarrassed by how they fought. He wouldn't look me in the eye at the end of the game. When I shook his hand, I think he was embarrassed. And I think that's where a lot of it came from, right from there. And if you listen to his diatribe after the game, I think it verifies it. So I'm upset with him more than anybody. And let his team take selfies, gangster selfies on the baseline after an event like that. That just shows total lack of control or respect.
Luke Longley not holding back there. Well, for more now on this, we can cross to reporter James Hancock, who's at Melbourne Airport, and Rachel Rieger, who is at Brisbane Airport, where most of the Boomers have just arrived. Rachel, so we heard there from assistant coach Luke Longley, as we said, not holding back. Daniel Kickett, who is really at the centre of this melee, has also been speaking today.
Yeah, absolutely. So he arrived in Brisbane Airport this morning to front the media. He all but apologised for his actions. He says they were regrettable. He's also said that he does feel he overstepped the line and he will accept any sanctions handed down by the International Basketball Federation. They will take several days to look into the incident and tell players what sort of action they will take against them. So this is what he had to say earlier.
It's a regrettable situation. I was put in a position, I think, where I obviously made an action which is regrettable and unfortunate. It's not good to put a stain on anything, and it was a good trip for the boys, and what would have been a good win, I think, ended poorly with a bit of a controversial issue, obviously. I think I've overstepped a little bit with my response to the escalation in the game.
So Daniel Kickett there taking some responsibility. The head coach, Andre Lamanis, also spoke, Rachel, and he was also accepting some responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. He said it was a very emotional match. It was very high stakes as well, and he says that the Australian team does own up to their part in what happened. But we did also hear from Luke Longley, who said they did feel that they were provoked into the actions and that they were intentionally trying to start a brawl with the Australian players.
So lots of people fronting the media, lots of the players and those coaches fronting the media in Brisbane, but in Melbourne we didn't hear so much from Chris Goulding, did we, this morning?
Chris Goulding had little to say as he left Melbourne Airport this morning. After clearing customs, he made a quick exit, walking and talking with reporters on the way out. He said, understandably, he was looking forward to getting home, seeing his family and having a rest, but he did promise to speak properly later on. Let's hear a little from Chris Goulding now.
It sunk in. As I said, it's been an interesting 48 hours. My main priority now is just to get home, spend some time with my family, and as I said, I'll speak to everyone at a more appropriate time. It's pretty early.
Yeah, of course.
Want to go get a Melbourne coffee and get into bed.
In that moment, I mean, you must have been pretty scared at that time.
Yeah, as I said, mate, I'll speak to everyone about it at a bit better time. I appreciate everyone coming out. I'm sure you can understand the timing of it all, so
no worries.
We'll speak to you guys
Thanks,
later.
Chris.
Chris Goulding there speaking just after 6 this morning at Melbourne Airport, still looking quite shaken by the whole episode. Rachel and James in Brisbane and Melbourne Airports, thanks very much.
Amazing stuff, and we await to see what penalties FIBA, the world governing body, will impose on players from both Australia and the Philippines.
Yes, and the Australian team very much saying that they're going to leave it in FIBA's court, so to speak, for the first pass, and then they'll look at what sanctions they may or may not take themselves afterwards. But the sort of sanctions that we could be talking about are suspensions from their leagues, both in Australia and in the US, for some of those US-based players. So pretty serious stuff.
Lots to come.